The White Witch podcast with me, Carly. Hope you are all well, witches. I'm afraid I haven't got a book review for you today. I should have one for next week as I'm close to finishing my next read. This is quite a long but juicy episode today. I was bewitched by our guest on today's podcast. That is Rachel Roberts, the best-selling author of the book Lupa, She-Wolf of Rome, Mother of Destiny, and also the book Wolf, Embody Your Inner Wolf. I was really drawn to Rachel's work, but also her persona. She has a wonderful energy, is a fountain of knowledge, and is truly authentic. There were so many messages in this episode in regards to being your true self, shining your light and so on, and I'm sure you witches will feel that too. This episode has us delving into the goddess Lupa, wolves and what we can learn from them, and how to work with their multifaceted energy. We also talk community, the lone wolf periods in life and what they can bring and teach us. We look at the divine masculine, balance in our own feminine and masculine energy, alongside other topics such as flower essences and what they are and how to work with them, and also the power of movement. I hope you enjoy this episode as much as I enjoyed the time with Rachel. So join me now to hear all about the wolf and the wolf goddess. I am so excited to be joined by the wonderful Rachel Roberts. She is the best-selling author of Lupa, She-Wolf of Rome, Mother of Destiny, as well as the book Wolf, Embody Your Inner Wolf, and Pantheon, the Romans. As well as a writer and historian, she is also a sacred dance teacher and empowerment and flower essence coach. Rachel is the creatrix of Wolf Woman Rising, an international online wisdom school where she empowers you to embody wisdom, reclaim your wild, untamed self, and create a life lived on purpose. Her desire has always been to create a bridge between history and spirituality, mythology and well-being, and her work focuses on transmuting ancient mythology into embodied wisdom so that the past becomes a modern tool of healing, empowerment, and awakening for men and women. Using her own journey and over 18 years' experience of teaching and training, she empowers and inspires students to deeply understand and practice courage, trust, and authenticity. Welcome to the show, Rachel.
Hey, thank you so much for having me here. Super excited.
I am so excited to have you on here because I came across your work after having Rachel Patterson on the show and came across your work, and I was like, she's speaking my language, and so many witches they listen to the show's language. So even your outline of the work that you do, I definitely know this is going to be up the street of so many of our witches. So this is really exciting.
Yeah,
So,
the wolves always bring the members of the pack in.
Yeah, we're bringing the pack members are here. We're all listening. There's going to be lots of howling in this episode and so on.
Oh.
And I kind of really did watch quite a few interviews that you did, and I was like, oh yes, I'm really looking forward to having this lady on. So yeah, thank you. So you have a wonderful book published called Lupa, She-Wolf of Rome and Mother of Destiny. And despite my love of wolves, this is a deity that I haven't come across much. Can you give us some insight into this deity to, kind of get us going before we read your book, and
Yeah.
why she resonates with you?
So I think everybody kind of knows her, but they don't know her. So if you've ever been on holiday to Rome, or know anything kind of about like Italian history, a lot of people know the foundation story of Rome, which is where she primarily features. Um, in that story, she's kind of just known as the she-wolf. The Latin for she-wolf is Lupa, so that is her name. So I think people, once I explain this, will be like, aha, I do know her. But then obviously I share her a little bit deeper, and a little bit more. So in the foundation story of Rome, which is kind of set in like the Bronze Age into the Iron Age, so we're looking at like 2,800 years ago. In that foundation story, it's really talking about the origins of the city of Rome, how that kind of civilization came into being. You know, that we know it as an empire, but it started out as just a few villages. Um, Before that, even we have this story about Romulus and Remus, who are the two twins. In that story, their great uncle is kind of usurps the throne of the Latin area, which is just below Rome, and they are put in a basket to be killed. The basket is sent down the river. The basket is actually found by Lupa, by the she-wolf. She takes the babies, she breastfeeds them, she nurtures them, she loves them, she protects them when people come to kill them. She then takes them to her cave, which is on Palatine Hill, which becomes the probably the most significant hill in the Seven Hills of Rome. And then they spend time with her in the cave, and then when they leave the cave, they then go on to become the first kings and the founders of the city. Um, I remember first kind of reading this story and thinking, gosh, wow, like it's so obvious to me here that this she-wolf, Lupa, is an epiphany of the goddess, that she is divine. Like she's not just there by mistake. I mean, what is the likelihood of a wolf just turning up, not eating the babies, because I'm sure they would be quite yummy as a snack, to a wolf. Um, and then also like the story resonated so much with me because at the time that I found her, I had been made redundant from what I thought at the time was my dream job. And I'd spent like 10 years going through the heritage sector trying to find where I belonged, to find where I can make a difference. And I knew I wanted a job so badly working with children and educating them about history. And then I got the job and I still wasn't satisfied. There was still something that wasn't quite fitting. I was teaching, I was sharing, I was educating, but there still was something missing. And then I was made redundant from that job. And I felt like, okay, well, where am I now? Like, where am I going? And then from that, I started to question, well, who am I? Because to know where I'm going, I need to know who I am. Who is it that is going somewhere? Who is it that wants things? Um, and at that time, I just happened to read her story. And I remember thinking, I am like those two little babies. I have been put in a basket. I've just gone down the river, not knowing where the river is going, feeling like I'm out of control. There's no flow. And I've landed at her feet. And she's taken me into the cave. Um, and in this cave time, I kind of felt like it was what I call like a dark night of the soul, or like a pivot point, or like a no man's land. It's this time when, I think we all go through this. We may go through this at one major time or lots of little times throughout our life where it's a time of unknown, where perhaps it's a pain time where we have a real ending, where there's grieving or loss, or it may just be a pivot where we're just trying to discern like, again, who am I? Where am I going? We go into the cave of the she-wolf. And in that, there is this time with her, which is raw, which is untamed, where we're with the mother deep in the earth, in the darkness, where there's nothing else, where we can come to find clarity and discernment in the darkness. And we need that time to really come fully back and deep into self so we can come back out of the cave. And then, like Romulus and Remus, we can then fulfill our destiny. We can live our purpose. We can live on purpose. And perhaps we couldn't have done that without that pivot point. So for me at the time, it was that redundancy. But when I look back, I saw, gosh, there's been many times where I've been taken into the cave of the wolf. And each time it has steered me towards kind of like this fulfilling of my purpose, like why I'm here. It's clarified things so I know more why I'm meant to be here. What am I meant to be uniquely contributing and doing? So yeah, in my book I kind of share more about her history, her mythology. I actually rewrite her story, because the story, of course, as most mythology is written by men. It's focused around the
Mm.
heroes, the men in the story. So I write the story from her perspective, as the she-wolf, because like in any story, we're not just Romulus and Remus. We are also Lupa. We're also the she-wolf. She can represent the divine. She is the divine, but she also represents the divine in ourselves, that part of us that is higher, that is facilitating our journey, that does know what's best because it can see the big story, not just kind of that moment where we're in, where we're panicking or we're scared or we're frightened, but there is a part of ourselves that is also Lupa, that can guide us and steer us and facilitate that nourishing, nurturing time where we can kind of come back to self and learn to love and respect and honor that self.
That's so beautiful. And it's almost as though you kind of found something that you felt might remedy the situation after being made redundant, or something like, oh, I'll try this, but she was like, no, this isn't for you, this isn't enough, we've got bigger plans for you. If
Yeah.
she saw the bigger picture, and you in that ability to surrender. And when you don't know what's around the corner, it's really hard to lean into that, especially when you're there as a result of some knocks and so on. And it's just one of the
Mm-hmm.
hardest things, but it's so beautiful when things just materialize. They kind of come up as if they're a gift to you, and
Mm-hmm.
they always are bigger and better. Generally they always seem to be bigger and better than we could have hoped for or even thought to. And I really love that. And yeah, the symbolism of the cave and that whole rebirth, that whole portal as well, is beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. That's really, yeah, a really wonderful message in your story already.
Yeah. I think, like I said, I think everybody finds these points, but we don't know what to describe them, do we? We kind of feel like, oh, we feel very alone in these times, like, oh, everybody else has got it sorted, everybody else knows what they're doing. That isn't true at all. We all go through these times where we're in the darkness. We're never alone there at all. At all. And there's always, I think that's what stories are kind of there for, to show us that there's always been somebody that's kind of, I mean, we all walk in a different way, but there's always somebody that's walked the path before us. So we always have an example to follow. And that's why I love history. There are examples there of everybody that's walked every single path, and you can see what resonates, what we might view as right and wrong. And we can learn from that. We have that example. So we're never alone in those instances at all.
And I think it solidifies how stories are so important across the course of time, for just those, the archetypes and so on, and how they can help you see what you can do in your life, or the themes have
Mm-hmm.
a similarity. And that's just something that I think is really important. And it's a lot of what I do, retelling stories, not writing stories in my work. But I
Yeah.
just think that it's something that's always been so powerful, and we must always try to come back to those stories to see if they do relate to what we're going through and so on.
Mm-hmm.
Coming back
Yeah.
to your books, and another book that you have out is called Wolf, an inspirational guide to embodying your inner wolf. So, with both of these books being wolf themed, and also just acknowledging that, I think with the work that I do, that I always think there's such an appetite from many witches that I speak to in respect of knowing more about the wolf and them as a
Mhm.
power animal and the symbolism and so on. Can you tell us more about why the wolf resonates so much with so many of us, and how and why might we wish to harness the energy that they have to offer?
Yeah. I think like the predators in general are always really enticing to us. I think there's something about like that power and that strength that really appeals. But the wolf in particular, I think it calls, it howls to our wild, untamed self. Um, that a kind of original essence that we want to be. So, throughout life we have a lot of kind of conditioning, expectations, judgments that are placed upon us, So um, I kind of think of it sometimes as like we're putting on different items of clothing. So every time somebody says to us, oh, you are this, or you should do that, or
Yeah.
you're not capable, or you're wrong, or you're bad, or you're ugly, it's like a layer of clothing that we put on that's actually hiding our original kind of naked self. And I think that the wolf appeals to that self before any of that clothing is put on. And with the wolf, you'll find that they empower you to strip off all of those items that are not yours and do not belong to you, so you can come back to your original self. For some people, the wolf is, I mean, it's a powerful energy, so it can be, when they come to you, expect that the work is going to be powerful, and sometimes people can find that these taking off of these clothes can be quite a process, because some can be inherited, from our family or loved ones even. And ourselves as well, we're coming back to our raw, wild, untamed self. But that wild, raw, untamed self, I think, appeals to us. It draws us in. It's because it's necessary. It's our kind of like, it's who we truly are, and we all just want to be recognized and seen, don't we? We want to have fulfillment, and we can't find fulfillment and recognition unless we are honest. Unless we are our true selves. And so I think it appeals, but also it can be quite intimidating. Um, but with Wolf, they come in particular because they will empower you to do it. They have that strength. They have walked that path of being themselves. And I think, in a lot of like folk tales, especially recent ones during the Christian era, the wolf has been portrayed as the bad guy, as the enemy, as dangerous, as vicious. And some of that has been there for a reason to kind of to warn people so they don't get eaten by wolves.
Yeah.
But but the wolf itself is a very gentle creature. It is a predator. um, it does have big teeth. It is strong. However, they're loving. They're all about teamwork and family and looking after each other. If you ever meet a wolf in the wild, they're not going to attack you unless you try to attack them. They're naturally timid and gentle. They'll run away. And the main reason being that we are the predators. We are the scariest, most violent and dangerous creatures on this planet. And it's worth remembering that. We are the ones that have taken over habitats. We are the ones that have killed wolves. Um, so actually, in themselves, they're gentle and they're nourishing. So this story that has been told about wolves is not true. Um, and in the same way, kind of expectations, for us can be suffocating, the ones that are placed on us. So, like the wolf, we can be labeled as bad, as ugly, as dangerous, especially if we are our raw essential selves, because that raw essential self is the one that's full of potentiality, that can do anything, be whatever they want, that will not be held back, will not be held down. The one that will make a difference, that, your raw untamed self will shine so brightly. Um, that you'll be an inspiration, that you will be full of joy, as you are naturally entitled to be. So I think the wolf as kind of an inspiration can, particularly their kind of magic, their medicine, more so than anybody else, any other guide, animal guide, is about courage, about kind of accessing our own inner courage, finding that courage to be ourselves, to be our own difference because our difference is needed. That also about, hugely about teamwork, about authenticity and inclusion, about validating self. So, the part that you are is essential, and you are the way you are for a reason. You were given your body, your voice, the way you sound, the way you look, the way you smell, everything for a reason. That's what you chose in this lifetime, to be this. And I think that's very relevant now when there's so much discrimination, so much exclusion. It's you and the other, and that's becoming more so. I think it's an extreme that's being pushed now, but it's pushing us because it needs to remind us of what's important, and that's inclusion, acceptance of difference. In the wolf pack, they'll all have something different that they kind of offer. So some will be kind of bigger because they're able to push, kind of like the snow out of the way, or they can go and do the hunting. Some will stay back and do the babysitting. They all have like these different skills. They're all accepted. The old people, even sick and old wolves, are accepted in the pack. They're not pushed out. You'll find that all the wolves do a bit of babysitting and helping out. So they have this real kind of example of teamwork that I love as well.
I love there's such an intelligence there. I've seen certain videos where you see them on the hunt, or if they're just trekking somewhere, and there's such a order to who goes where, like the elderly, the sick will be placed in one part of the line, and it's all really thought out. And I think as well, we often, I mean, I know I've done this, is worked with the energy of the lone wolf, and also looked at the wolf in terms of the community aspect as well. So there are certain, aspects to the wolf that are very often drawn upon, which is really powerful also. I'm really curious to understand more about how you work with their energy. So I was going to ask you, Rachel, do you work with Lupa and the wolf as a power animal within your own craft? And how does that look? I mean, are you happy to share with us if you make any specific offerings that you might make, or any ritual or ways that you honor them?
Yeah, so Lupa, I feel, is kind of very much like an adoptive mother for me,
Mm.
kind of like a spirit mother. So I call her Mama Wolf.
Oh, I love
Um,
that.
and like she is kind of like my permanent altar that I have in my bedroom, and she's right next to my bed. Um, because I feel like I connect to her kind of it's almost like I call it like cuddling up with deity. Like
Yeah.
I like kind of I snuggle. I feel like I'm going into a cocoon, and I can feel her wrapped around me. So when I have that reflective time, or that journaling time, that time where I'm just quiet, you know, um, I feel her very much there, kind of with me, and I have a very specific place that I go to meet her. So kind of like the deity, the diva of my business, is actually Grandmother Wolf.
Mm.
So she's one that came forward like with the books as well, and I kind of, her and Lupa, whenever I go to kind of like, if I'm thinking about anything with my business or my purpose or my destiny, or where am I going, should I do this, like if I have a decision about like, should I put on this workshop, or do I need to do this job, or should I do it this way or this post, I often will go to their journey to go to them. I'll take myself on a meditation, and I will visit both of them, and they both kind of hold my books as well, in the kind of the cave, and they're kind of there around all the time for me. I particularly connect and celebrate Lupa at Lupercalia, which is her festival in February, in the ancient Roman calendar. So I always do a lot then, but I feel that Lupa's with me every day. And I keep my kind of practice exceptionally simple, because I think, why complicate, like, life's so complicated as it is. I will just talk to her. And I think often, like, people expect there to be like, oh, you need like 10 candles in this position, like looking that way at this specific time, and you've got to use this and that. I think, no, just talk, just speak to them, that you don't need to kind of fulfill this and this and that. And I think some of it, like when we do look in the past, often the ritual is quite complicated that the, say, ancient Romans or ancient Greeks were doing. There is kind of a list of 10,000 things you need to do. But I think part of that is to keep that practice exclusive to those that are in the know. That isn't, I don't feel that's so relevant now. I find that deity, I literally just strike up a conversation, like, and I do it with all of them. I always show my respect and my honor. I don't just go, like, oh, hey, I want this, because that would just be rude to anybody. But I kind of honor them, but I just speak to them. I specifically call on Wolf though when I'm kind of after, I think, protection, and boundaries, and also like a boost of kind of strength and courage. So I have kind of different animal deities and spirit guides that are for different different, that help me with different things. If I'm feeling perhaps a bit scared, say I was walking down the street, on my own, I'd you know I'd call them in to be walking with me. Or if someone's crossing my boundary, um, like boundaries that I've established, then I will call on Wolf to give me kind of that boost of my boundaries to energetically kind of enforce them as well. I also find that Wolf, they particularly connect to kind of like our throat and our solar plexus chakras. So I do find that speaking, singing, and howling is a good way to connect them. They're going to help you to heal and open up your voice so that you can express. I share in my book Wolf, that wolves have like 5 different ways of communicating, and they're all communicating different things. They're used in different contexts. Like, so say there was a baby, you wouldn't start shouting at a baby. And you want to use that nurturing, caring voice. So, in the context of ourselves, if we're wanting to nurture and care for ourselves, then why do we shout at self? We need to use more tender, gentle words that we would use with a baby, because that's what we need. So they're going to be working with you when you're specifically working through the voice. That could be howling just whenever you need to, if there's something you can't express like through words. Sometimes, like, there's not enough swear words in the vocabulary to kind of express what you need. So sometimes you just need to like howl, because it moves the energy, it gets it out of your system, I think. And I have invocations as well in both of my books that, for specific reasons, but I think just using your voice is so important. With Wolf, that's something that I'll really teach you and they'll help you to use as well. And then you might find that also movement with wolves often happens, because they are connected to nature. Nature moves and flows. So whether that's walking out in nature, whether that's dancing while howling or dancing while invoking or speaking or singing and dancing, they often, that's the way that I connect to them as well. So I come into my wild, untamed self through dance, that part of me that has no inhibitions, just dancing to, I have various playlists. I have, playlists for like, I don't know, sexy time, erotic time, where I just want to get into my sacral. I have a playlist for like, for like maybe angry or frustrated self, and the movement helps you to access kind of that wild primal self that, I find that sitting and trying to meditate that way, it's never worked for me anyway. I have to be moving. But I do find that Wolf will call you to move. They've got that kind of that, as you do with nature, you end up moving. I think I'm doing it now. I'm sitting here like kind of doing like chest circles. I'm just talking. I don't know if you can see me, but I just noticed that. I was like, oh, I've just started belly dancing. But it happens.
It's really interesting you said about movement, because it's not something I've explored enough in what I do. And I think many, witches I speak to have said the same. And also when you said about the singing and the throat chakra, I never really thought enough about what a wonderful connection that is between the two. And I think it reminds me of, and I wish I could quote it word for word, but it's like, when I think this might be from Women Who Run with the Wolves, or, something, it was one similar text. And it's about, when you're not feeling yourself, when you're feeling down, and the questions like, well, when did you last sing? When did you last dance? And so on. And they are such powerful things we can do. And I don't think I do enough of it. And I think it's overcoming that. I think there's a little bit of reservation, if I'm honest, at times, to just, belt out a song, or, just start dancing. And I think that's something I need to work on, because I do think that would really have like a great healing energy to it for me, and many of us. And is that something you come across a lot when you're working with people on the movement side and the work you do there, this kind of reservation that we're not like, a lot of us, I don't think we are great at like letting go and doing that.
Yeah, I think like so much in life that we end up living looking from the outside in rather
Yeah.
than from the inside out. So we're worried about how we look, how we're going to be judged. And I think this is it, it's an ancient thing. It's about kind of like that fear that we're going to be pushed out of the tribe, out of the pack, if we're not conforming. Um, it's that judgment that we don't want to be judged as lesser than, or insignificant or stupid or wrong or whatever. So that does come up a lot. Yeah, so I've been teaching dance for 18 years, and I always find that it's interesting actually that I think for women they actually have more confidence when it comes to movement, and men less. And because
Mm.
men have more kind of, they're more confident with their voice and sharing ideas and thinking. Women actually, I think, have a kind of a little bit more, although there is still that kind of that worry, that inhibition about how do I look. I think, we've also had a very long time of women, the way that we look has been the most important thing that we have to offer. That is the form and the way that we have been judged, and our value has been judged. Um,
Yeah.
so I think movement has an important part to play in reclaiming our value and our worth. I always say to like, I mean, in my dance classes, I always kind of try to relax people, making them laugh, um, and reminding them of the wonder of their body. I mean, the fact that you can even do that, the fact that you can move
Yeah.
your hips, the privilege that it is for us to be able to move how we want, when we want, is a gift, and we have to claim that, because there's how many how many of your grandmothers have not been able to move how they want, to be able to dance how they want? How much confinement has there been of women? And I think we have almost an obligation to reclaim that now, to choose it for ourselves, because there is no reason why we shouldn't be. We are safe,
Yeah.
and we have that privilege. Um, and I think, but you have to take it in the steps, the tiny steps, when you're ready for. So I always say to people, if they want to start movement, is to just choose your favorite songs or your favorite genre. Maybe you're just putting on a playlist like 1990s music, or, even something really cheesy like Steps or the Macarena or whatever.
Love
Um,
it. Love this.
I mean, Macarena is sure to get everybody moving.
Yeah.
But and you can do it in a spiritual way, I'm sure. Um, but yeah, like, and just do it in a room where it's just you. There's nobody else there. You can even do it in the dark, so you can't even see your own reflection if you want. And have this sacred time and say to everybody else that's in the house, right, don't come on. This is my space, my time. Establishing your boundaries. Put your favorite music on. Don't have any intention, like don't put any pressure on yourself that I need to do this. Literally just go with the flow, like just see what happens, or even just enjoy that moment of just moving. That in itself is so healing, because you're giving yourself permission to do
Yeah.
whatever you need to be whatever you need to be. you may want to take this further, and kind of like actually go there with intention. So having a meditation, you know, like we have a huge astrological portal. This is coming, you say, because this is coming out Thursday, so I can mention this. A huge astrological portal happening this Saturday. So
Yeah.
the 29th of March, and it's a huge, like the biggest ending and beginning in like a 5-year cycle. So I would like have a go this Saturday in the morning around the time of the eclipse. And just have a go, like create sacred space for yourself. It may just be lighting a candle. You may want to put essential oils on your body. You may want to kind of wear your favorite clothes or have a journal, next to you. Maybe just 5 minutes, 10 minutes, or maybe you may even just give yourself an unlimited time and just move. I mean, dance doesn't have to be a choreography. It's not a performance. It's not like, you know, 10 hip lifts, lift your leg, turn right. It is movement in any way, like, just wiggling your hips, just stretching. It may look even more like kind of a yoga movement or a breathwork movement than what we would label as dance, but just be authentic and just let yourself go, and then just start there, and then enjoy it. Most of all, enjoy it.
I think you've just really empowered me and many other witches with that, because when you said just put on some like 90s music, or in my mind, when I think of and when I read about, you should dance and you should sing, in my mind, it's like I must be dancing to something ethereal and floaty, and it's got to look
Yeah,
like this, and I've got to be like this goddess dancing. And to be honest, that isn't me. And I could be like doing some great moves to a 90s dance track. And that would
yeah.
really so you saying that has reframed the whole look on how that should be, because I do think sometimes in the witchy space or the spiritual space we see these examples of people doing these things, but it's very like
Mm.
it's very curated, and it's like quite intimidating to do. So you saying that as just, yeah, I'm going to be dancing to some like Prodigy or something on the weekend.
Yeah, I mean, go for it. I mean, that's the thing, is there's so much shoulds all the time. Like, you should be doing this. And this is why, like, I'm so much about authenticity. And like, people say, "Oh, what should I do?" And I go, "What do you want to do?" Like what really resonates for you. Like if I'm feeling really angry and frustrated, it's often like stomping and shaking and like swearing, and perhaps people might think, "Oh, that just looks a bit weird," but it doesn't matter what it looks like. That's what I
No.
need at the time. Like one of the examples I always give to my dance students is like I was struggling with when I was learning belly dance before I started teaching. I was struggling with one move in particular. Like I really could not do it, and I was trying and trying and trying. And I ended up like one moment, I remember I was in the kitchen and I put on Ramstein and
Oh
I was
yeah.
just like, I was stomping and I just like, "Ah!" And I just, and it just happened and I just did it because I was like, I wasn't thinking about what does this look like? What will other people think of me? Will my teacher think this is okay? I was just doing it and in the moment, um, you know, and it's now my favorite move
Yeah.
and I just love it. But it took me just like, stomping around the kitchen to Ramstein to make it happen. So yeah, just give yourself permission to do what you need to do. Like nobody else can tell you how it should look or what your practice should look like, what you should do. Like no one is the expert on your path apart from you. You are the expert on you.
My dad met Ramstein at a service station randomly on their way to a gig or something, and it's just the story he always brings up. So, but yes,
Yeah.
that's very, very empowering, and also just shifts so much energy, and really,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, definitely going to be something I'm going to be trying. So, no, thank you. We will all be dancing on this, the solar eclipse. It's the solar eclipse, isn't it, on the 29th that we've got. It's a really fascinating time at the moment, and I've been trying to get my head around it, and look at releasing lots of things. So a lot you said about releasing and so on earlier, like really resonated, and the surrendering
Mm-hmm.
as well. And all
Yeah.
these things around the corner that we cannot foresee. It's like this exciting energy at the moment of like just feeling like something's around the corner. So yes, it's
Mm-hmm.
a very exciting time, a magical time to be alive. So
Yes.
we're really nosy on the podcast. Or rather I am, and I just pass it off to everybody listening. But are you like happy to give us any other insight into perhaps what else you do in your spiritual practice? Do
Hmm.
you, do you do any ancestral work? Do you have any other like forms of the craft that you enjoy? Do you
Hmm.
work like look at celebrating any of the Sabbaths and so on?
Mm. So I mean, often for me, like kind of when it comes to like the wheel of the year and these high holy days, like I often find that it just doesn't always work like in
Yeah.
modern life, and I think that there's a lot of pressure because you often find around the Sabbat you get everybody on social media going, right, this is happening on this day and this is like huge and this is major and we all need to do something today. And sometimes for me it's a few days before, a few days after. It's when I feel like it's right for me. um
Yeah.
and often, like you get some that, I mean, the dates vary as well. And it's also a portal. So you can do what you like whenever you want, whatever works for you, never feel under pressure that, but often, I mean, always makes me laugh that, you'll get people putting posts like, this is the most powerful, significant moon in the whole time. And you need to
Yeah.
do everything now. And then they say the same thing for the next full moon. And you're like, oh, okay. So
I
honestly, just
agree.
do what you want when you want. Um, but like for me, my way of connecting, obviously there's the dance, there's the writing. I love journaling, and that's very natural to me as I like to journal. And just get my thoughts down on paper. Sometimes it'll be with doodling and drawing as well. Also the flower essences have been my kind of like a really powerful tool for me. My go-to kind of when it's my emotions. So I call it like my toolbox of all the
Mm.
different things that I have. And I am very discerning about like kind of I have been about like, you can learn lots of different things, then you find out what resonates for you. And then if something resonates for you, you put it in your toolbox so that it's accessible whenever you need it. Your toolbox is going to be unique of the things that you particularly love, that particularly work for you, that you found from experience. So like the journaling, I will kind of use when perhaps I'm working with my heart space or my mind space. So I'm trying to work through something perhaps doesn't make sense. There's thoughts on my mind that I need to put them down. The dancing, um, I think is very much I use for moving energy. And then if it comes to something in my body, I will use kind of food as medicine. So if my body needs something, um, like, I know that I need something in particular, like I need to change like do I need a particular drink today or a particular food? So that's a way of me listening and connecting to my body and nourishing my body. And then the flower essences are kind of my tool from my toolbox that I'll take out when there's something emotionally that needs support. Uh, so I'm trained as a practitioner and also as a coach in flower essences, and I have found that on my journey that they can do anything, like
Yeah.
literally anything. And it never ceases to amaze me that kind of the gift of Mother Nature, that she has everything there that she gives like unconditionally, like unlimited. Like you can just go out and there is a flower for everything.
Yeah.
Like she's got it ready for you, just waiting there for you to use. And that like it just blows my mind. And I'm forever grateful for that. Flower essences are a high vibrational remedy. They are the souls of the plant. So if you work, say, with herbal medicine, you're working with the chemical of the plant, like essential oils. It's the chemical that you're working with biologically. Um, Whereas flower essences are kind of like non-invasive. So you don't make it kind of you make it energetically with the vibration of the flower rather than using its physical body. So it's the soul of the plant and it's meeting you soul to soul. So often they're used for kind of like emotional healing, emotional empowerment. However, as we know, emotions have effects on the body and the body affects the emotions. So often through healing the emotions, connecting to the emotions, we're able to heal and support the body as well. Um, so like I said, there is a flower for everything. Um, so for example, like like my beloved cat, passed away a week ago, and my first go-to to help me through the grieving portal was to reach for my flower essences. So there were certain ones I'd reach out for example, green beech, and sycamore. They're both about going through the grief portal. And, I just take 3 drops 3 times a day. You can, take them like that. So you're taking a formula, one that's created by a practitioner such as myself, or one that you kind of made your own by just researching, what you need. You can take a formula 3 times a day. You just take the drops like orally, on your tongue, or you can take them on your skin. You can just like have the formula next to you, because it's a it's the soul. It kind of meets us on an energetic level, so you don't need to consume it to actually benefit from it. So I often, like, I do a lot of flower essence journeys where people are meditating with the flower and they can receive the healing that way. And I do that through my one-to-one coaching, where we go and meet your flowers. So the flowers that are particularly aligned to your path, your purpose, and your person. Because you will have like animal totems or your divine guides. You will also have flowers that are yours, that are kind of symbolic for you. Like for me, I have particular ones like borage is like one of my main flower guides. Borage is all about courage, so I've had to embody that on my own path through my own trials and my experiences. And borage keeps coming back all the time. Um, and then also daisy for me, like fleabane. And I always like loved daisies as a child. Like I was obsessed with daisies. Like like everybody else is like, oh, the roses and the lilies. And I was like, no, the lawn daisy, that delicate little flower that I just used to lie on the grass and talk to. And I remember that. And then when I did my training, my teacher was like, oh, what's your favorite flower? And I was like, daisy. And she was like, that's all about reclaiming the wounded feminine. And I was like, whoa,
Oh,
like that
wow.
so resonates for my past. I was like, oh, that just so fits. That's the reason why it's my favorite. Like it's like my symbolic flower self. Because that's been huge in my life, the wounded and feminine. So yeah, there is flower essences for every situation and every person. And I love that, the diversity that's there. Um, and I think a lot of people will know already, like, those listening, just think about a flower that's always popped up in your life that kind of is always there, that you might think, oh, it's my favorite, or you see flowers out in nature and it just draws your eye. That
Mm.
flower has something to teach you. It has a lesson in particular for you.
Oh, I love this, Rachel. I'm so sorry about the passing of your cat. I just wanted to say it's so hard. So thank you for sharing that. And I'm really sorry to hear that. Um,
Thank
I
you.
love what you said about the flower essences. This is something I haven't looked into enough. And so if somebody wanted to use flower essences, they could get in touch with you and, kind of outline maybe what they're going through and what they're looking for. And is that correct? And can you then
Yeah, so
guide?
yeah, I do one-to-one coaching. So I don't believe in just giving somebody medicine and telling them to go away
Yes.
with it and just deal with it themselves. So I actually hold people through a 4 or 6 month portal, or maybe even just one session. So at least, we can really talk through and discuss, at least an hour. Like, I don't believe in these GP appointments that are 10 minutes. I think you can't find out anything in 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Like really, really getting to know, the situation, and then discerning kind of like which flowers are most needed. And so that one-to-one kind of coaching is something I offer. You get the formula. If you're in the UK, you get the formula, the meditations, the course, and you get my one-to-one coaching. If you're not in the UK, obviously we have issues with deliveries at the moment and getting anything anywhere in the world. um, so it would be just the online stuff, without the formula, but you could go and make the formula yourself once I've given you the essences and told you what they are.
Ah, this
Yeah,
is beautiful.
but
As well, when you said about knowing what your flower was, I straight
Mhm.
away was like the dandelion, and I resonated with what you said about the daisy.
Mm.
Like you wouldn't think of the daisy, and it's kind of like you say, people often think of more perhaps luxurious, or just more kind of exotic
Yeah.
flowers perhaps. And yeah, like I instantly was like, the dandelion, I see him as like a little lion, and like courage,
Yeah.
and that tenacity and their ability to just
Hmm.
grow anywhere and flourish. And
And
yeah,
also, the
sorry.
dandelion is also called the weed. It's called a weed, and people just want to eradicate it. Yeah, it's so valuable. So it's underappreciated, it's undervalued. So it has this thing about kind of reclaiming kind of the value of, they're often the first flowers that bees go to, and bees love it. And they can
Oh,
also help, with your kidneys and and things like that. That I just think that, yeah, they're really undervalued. So perhaps there's something there about reclaiming that which has been deemed unworthy.
it's like the underdog.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. Oh, I'm gonna have to. Yeah, I'm definitely gonna have to think on. But no, straight away when you said that, and I'm sure loads of people listening were like, "Oh, mine's this."
Well, they can always message me, if they have a flower in particular that, they want to know a little bit more about, then please do just let me know.
Oh, I love this. I'm always really curious about the writing experience that authors have. So when
Hmm.
you were writing both your Lupa and Wolf book, did you
Yeah.
find yourself channeling the wolf or Lupa, or did you have any strange experiences or synchronicities, receive any messages, have any dreams that related to them during that process that you're happy to share?
Mm. I think what's important for me to share is that when I've always felt like during my life like that I've always been trying, like trying so hard. But that's always on the school report. She tries so hard, but not quite, kind of like not it doesn't never quite works. Now when I started writing Lupa, I just knew as soon as I kind of read her story, I had to write about her. It was like my whole being just had to do it. There was this no questioning about it. It was so certain. And at the time I had no idea how it was going to be published, what I was going to do with it. I mean, I had a publisher in mind, but I didn't know they'd accept it. I just wrote it, and I literally wrote it in less than 2 months. It just came out of me,
Mhm.
and and I feel like kind of it's because for me I'd finally kind of got pinpointed that thing that fulfills me, and
Mm.
as a person, as my joy, but also fulfills my dharma, my destiny. I was living on purpose. I was living to be of service in the way that I uniquely can, and therefore it just worked. And then that was affirmed for me when I came to write my second book. I I knew which book I was going to write next. I had a plan. I had it all written down with a timetable and everything. And I started to write, and it wasn't working. And people call it writer's block. Yeah, I don't believe in writer's block. I believe that it's not the right time. And so I was a bit. So I kind of was like, okay, right, this is obviously not what I'm meant to do. Let's
Mhm.
bookshelf kind of this project. What am I meant to do? And my second book, Wolf, came forward, and I had not expected it. I had not planned it at all. And I really had to trust, because obviously that was what was needed. That what was the service that I could give at the time. Um, and it just came out of me, and there was no plan, no kind of real understanding. It was just it's just what needed to be. Um, and I think if I'd kind of tried to stick to what I thought was right, I would have just kept trying, and it would have, I would have been trying very hard, but it wouldn't have quite been the right time, or perhaps I wasn't able to share, what I needed to at the time. So, um, kind of both have been examples of trust of what's meant to be, trusting the universe, trusting the divine, and that there is an unfolding that is meant to happen. A flower will bloom in the right time, in the way that it's meant to. We can't force that. Um, and I've also found that from writing the books, it's been cathartic for me as well. Um, through writing it, obviously, you shouldn't preach what you don't know. um, wisdom becomes from experience. We can have as much knowledge as we want, but we transform that into wisdom through experiences. So all the things that I wrote about have been challenges in my own life, and they came up, throughout the times of writing. So like I found throughout writing those books, and now like people respect my boundaries more in particular. Um, like my boundaries have definitely firmed up. I'm able to express myself more. Like I always remember, it's one of these pivotal moments in my life, like with one of my teachers, where they were trying to process anger, and we were going through like a dance movement, and it's like, express your anger, and there was like nothing for me. And she was like, "What are you angry about?" And I was like, "Well, nothing." And there was nothing there. There was no anger, and I was like, "Well, there must be." And through working through it and working through Wolf, I realized
Mm.
that what I'd done is I'd become numb. I'd been wanting so much to be the good girl, well behaved, quiet and, and gentle and angel like you said, that I'd actually shut down my anger, my frustration, that I hadn't given allowance for it. And through working with Wolf, like, well, a lot of people say I swear a lot now. But because I'm able to express what I feel, but also my boundaries. Like I find that people do respect my boundaries more, whereas before it was like people would there wasn't any boundaries because, I was just like, oh, everybody, you can just take what you want. I'm always here. I'll always do anything. Whereas because I worked on them, people are now respect them more. Um, and people honor my truth more because that's what I've reclaimed. So that has been a powerful process that's come from working with Wolf and being in that energy. Um, yeah. So and I also find that like kind of this podcast, I suppose that um, now that I've kind of expressed my truth and what is important to me and sharing it through my work and my voice, um, my pack comes to me. You know,
Mm.
people that resonate with me. Like before, I've always kind of felt like a lonely person, like you said before about the lone wolf. Um,
Mm.
but what I learned in writing and learning about wolves, was that the lone wolf is a period of time. It's not a permanent state. The lone wolf always returns to the pack, whether that's making a pack of their own or whether it's finding a pack. But the lone wolf time is about learning out, who are you, what do I need, where am I going, and so you can come into true authenticity, so that you're vibrating, that there's this resonance that people will come to you, rather than you kind of like searching for I don't know what, the pack, the wolves that are particularly part of your pack will come to you. But um I've definitely found that since kind of coming into this authentic expression that I've had through writing, for sure.
It's really powerful. You do end up emitting a different frequency, don't you, when you kind of do the inner work, and which we're always doing. Like it's never ending. There's always something,
Yeah.
which is great. It's wonderful to have these things in our self-awareness and to kind of work on. And I completely agree with you with once you start doing it, like the boundaries and people just sense that you're a different, I don't know, you're on a different frequency or you're just not the same person.
Hmm.
And sometimes in that, I find I really resonated with everything that you said about, you start to attract your pack. And I think you might relate to this as well. Like one of the issues when we were talking about surrendering and, trusting what comes through and so on, I think one thing I always did, and a lot of people struggle with, and I still do, is trying to control things and bring in what I think is right, what I think I
Hmm.
need. And then the universe whipping that out from underneath me and saying, no, this is what we're giving you. And at the time, it's like the end of the world because I think, no, that was it. I wanted that. And,
Uh-huh.
it's all like very, kind of a tower moment and it feels awful and it's not what you wanted. I really wanted this. And then you look back, because something else comes along that is so much better for you. It all just
Yeah.
works so seamlessly. And then you look back and you're like, at the time it was the worst thing ever that this didn't work out. And now I'm just
Yeah.
thinking, this is wonderful because I just hung on in
Mm-hmm.
there. But it's so hard when you're there. It's so hard in the middle of it,
Yeah.
and just trusting.
Yeah. It's just remembering that that time is just a time of discernment. So, even if something doesn't work out, perhaps that experience is clarifying for you what you don't want. Not even
Yeah,
just what you do want, but what you don't want. Or, it kind of gives you more insight, so that those parts are necessary. They're a part of the path, they're part of the process. They're valuable, so often, something comes to us to say, like, you apply for 6 jobs and you really wanted one, but you didn't get the first one. Perhaps that's you playing small. The universe knows that you're better somewhere else. Or the next one, you meet somebody that, ends up like as a soulmate. Or perhaps, by not getting that job, perhaps you're being asked to address, do I really want it actually? Or is there something else? Is there something more? Yeah, there's always kind of there's always more to see.
there is a huge energy this year of not playing it small, and I think a lot
Mhm.
of women, especially, kind of conversations we've had, are going to have these things arise, such as the good girl aspect, not taking up space. There's going to be a lot of work that I think myself and a lot of witches that are in my community and so on are going to have come up as a theme around the energy of this year, which is interesting.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, really excited for this year and all the kind of, I don't know, I just feel this excitement of things happening and it all, changing in a good way.
Yeah. Yeah. I think
Well,
like we see so much negativity, don't we, in the leadership, especially I think at this time and the things that are happening in the world. And we're being called to feel that anger, that frustration, that kind of that rising to counterbalance and to heal and to midwife in something else. Again, because we're angered by that thing, it's clarifying for us what we don't want. You see this and you go, and perhaps though it's pushing you into standing up more for what you do want.
a huge shake up, absolutely. I really think this is, externally, there's going to be a lot that is going to trigger a lot of us and going to create a lot of anger and rage, and that's going to have to be channeled. And, obviously, we're
Mhm.
inner work as well. So it's very interesting times. And I think it's just, leaning into it, which is easier said than done. Um, but
Yeah,
talking of
I
this year, sorry, Rachel.
No, I was going to say there's a huge part there about taking responsibility for ourselves. Like, no matter what's going on in the world, it's who am I? What can I
Yeah,
do? What do I stand for? And taking that responsibility for our emotions, for our actions, for our choices. Like, with like, often, like, I find with like wolf things, when you first address people, they have this idea of like, the alpha wolf, which is a male wolf, which is in charge and he bosses around the rest of the pack. It isn't like that at all. Like I said, they work as a team. You have the alpha pair, which is led by the female. She has her mate, who is like her backup, who, helps her to run. And then, they're her children. So the leadership is about nurturing. And I think that, um, this idea of this absolute one single power. If you look in nature, that is not the case at all. Look at the wolf pack and the way that, say they're going through the snow, it's not always the alpha that is leading. Sometimes it's the puppy, there's a bigger puppy that is more able to do that because it's stronger, it's bigger. It's each playing our part. So I think there is going to be a shift in leadership, where we come more into authenticity. And I think we're being called to be the alpha in our own lives, to stand up as the she wolf, and rising in our power, and taking responsibility for ourselves, how we feel, our choice and our actions. And that's how we can express what we want, what we need, and what we don't want. And that's what's going to create change.
just a slight observation, sort of moving away from the collective and the leadership side of it, that dynamic that you just gave, what a powerful energy to perhaps work with for maybe relationships as well, or
Yeah.
masculine and feminine energy within yourself, working with the
Mm-hmm.
the wolf archetype, the wolf energy,
Yeah.
because it is a healthy dynamic to look at.
Yeah. I mean, we need both. We need the masculine and the feminine. And I feel like for me, I feel at the moment it's actually the masculine that needs the healing, that masculine that needs the loving and compassionate attention. Like I've noticed within myself that like I remember going to Glastonbury and I went there intending to heal my feminine because my feminine was hurting. And I remember being shown that it was Pan actually that I found, but it was my masculine that was wounded because I'd rejected it and I'd made it wrong and bad and ugly because it had hurt me so much. And I saw it as wrong. I saw it as the predator, as the one that's going to destroy. And I needed to kind of heal the masculine within myself
Mm.
hugely before I could learn to love it and hold space for it in the outer world. And I think that yeah, we need to work with both. Like the wolf deities that I work most with at the moment are male deities. And that partnership in the pack is always about the both, and that reflects nature. There's masculine and feminine in everything and within us, and we need to kind of bring them both forth and love, respect, and honor both. But I do feel actually that it's the masculine that's calling now to be loved, to be accepted, to have allowance, because I feel like the feminine has risen and she's had that space. Like, you look at let's say you go to like a yoga studio. I would say that 90% of things that happen there are for women and
Yeah.
are attended by women. We have the spaces. We have kind of recording to the feminine arts of movement and dancing and and beauty and intuition and going with the flow. But I think that actually probably when we come down to it, there's a lot of healing that needs with the masculine as well, like structure and boundaries and discipline. They've all those words probably straight away you think they sound negative, but actually that's their superpowers of the masculine that can also facilitate healing, you know?
Oh, I really agree with this conversation. And this is something that, I mean, just with myself and a number of women that have got to a point where, I mean, this is something I see a lot now, of not even wanting to date, having very limited interaction with the masculine just due to
Yeah.
how that looks. And I don't know what the answer, I guess we just have to do our own work. We can't, well, there
Mm.
must be a better answer to it than I have. But the only way I can see forward for myself, and when I'm speaking to others that I know about this topic, is just to continue. I guess for me, when you were saying about the like when you were working on the masculine energy, I have always been, I used to always be too much in my masculine energy. So I struggled with feminine energy and connecting with other women and, lots of things there.
Yeah.
So I was like the other side of the spectrum, but it's really
Hmm.
strange because the last, I think, sort of 4 or 5 months, I've really been in my feminine energy. I've really felt like throw on the floaty dresses, and that was never me. And, put the
Yeah.
floaty dresses on and, like wanting to dance around and wanting to
Uh-huh.
sing, wanting to do these things and really thinking, oh my goodness, I saw this thing as well that said, when you start to like love the color pink again and things like that, that's when you sort of know that you're starting to heal and coming into your feminine more. And it was just really hit me out of
Yeah.
nowhere. And I'm
Hmm.
loving it. I'm like, wow, I was really, really stuck in the balance was really out of kilter
Yeah.
too. And I think lots of witches listening to this will instantly know or feel like, and actually sometimes it's not so obvious because I don't know that
Hmm.
I really could tell that I was struggling with the two. But yeah, I think really for me, I guess my only way that I can come to this is try to be a balance of the two in myself. And like you were
Yeah.
saying earlier, show up authentically, just live authentically and do what you feel you want to and need to do, and your pack will gravitate to you.
Definitely. And I think that what's important as well is that we embody different archetypes of the pack at different times, and there's more than just the masculine and feminine as well. Like
Yeah.
I mean, I share in my wolf book, like, about kind of you've got the pups, so you've got the maiden and the bachelor that we can both embody. We have the mother, the father, we also have grandmother and grandfather. And we're going to need these different archetypes at different times, and they're all going to have their own woundings, their own experiences, their kind of their own empowerment that's needed, their own healing. And we'll find that we need to embody them at different times, and we will journey through them or travel through them, some for longer periods than others if we need more healing in certain ones, but we will flow from the other. So you might find that you're in your feminine more at a certain time because you need to heal aspects of that, or you need that particular one to fulfill something in your life. And then you'll move on to something else. Like, I find that, grandfather wolf for me has been the grandfather energy has actually been one that I've unexpectedly needed to work with, because he's all about listening, and really not just like, we think we're listening, but are we really listening? Listening to self, listening to others as a full mind, body, spirit practice, and listening to the earth, listening to my truth. And he's really about that. And then, that for a period of time, then you'll move into something else. What do you need next? Often we think it's just our opposite, like, oh, I'm really girly, I need to kind of like, be a bit more manly, or I'm a bit manly, I need to be a bit more feminine. We all have different levels within ourselves, emotionally and spiritually, and we're always looking for that harmony, like you said, that balance kind of between it all. And it's experience and experiment. Only you know what that balance is right for you and where and what is needed. So it's just kind of like, be an expert on yourself again.
Yeah, know thyself. No, I love that. Oh, you honestly, Rachel, I could listen to you talking about anything. Like, I've learned so much from having you on. One of my favorite like people to have on, because I'm genuinely like opening my mind up to so many different conversations and different rabbit holes to delve down after this. So I'd love to ask you, have you any other projects things that you wish to share with us? Where can we find your work? Where can we find you? Where can we join your pack?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, just howl and I'll appear.
Yeah.
If you're doing enough howling, I'll just pop up at your window. Yes. So you can find me on social media. I'm on Instagram and Facebook and YouTube. Those are my three that I like. Anything else I just can't work. So I mean, and if you oh gosh, like so many people said to me, "You're on TikTok," and I was like, "No, because I just don't get it," and I just don't get it. I'm like, if I don't get it, then what's the point? So I'm not just doing it for the sake of it. So yeah, I mean, if you don't do social media, I also have an emailing list. Once a week, I talk to you in your email box, and therefore you do not have to go onto Facebook if you don't want to with that. So you can find that via my website. For social media, just find me Wolfman Rising. If you put it in, then I am sure to pop up. So Wolf and Lupa, both those books are available now, so you can purchase them if you want to learn more about anything that I've shared, and go on your own wolf empowerment journey. Pantheon the Romans, which is my next book, which is all about religion in ancient Rome and all the Roman deities, like the truth, the core of what they are, and working with nature in the Roman world. That's out January next year. And I'm currently writing my next book, which is all about the goddess Flora, who's the Roman goddess of flowers, sex, sexuality, prostitutes, and blossoming, and nature. So I'm loving that because, if you're working through it, again, I get to work with nature, which I adore, but it's what surprised me was that kind of that connection between the blossom and the flowers and woman's sexuality and sensuality. So I'm getting to dive deeply into that, which I haven't done yet in a book. So that's to be continued.
This is exciting. And obviously that I take it that must be a great with the work that you do with the flower essence as well.
Yeah, definitely. So like whenever I've done my flower essence practice, Flora has always been there as like my guide because she is the goddess of flowers. And again, it wasn't her book I wasn't expecting to write. I've got a plan. I must have about 50 books on on the like drafts, with about 2 paragraphs on my computer. And she was one of them, but I hadn't expected her to come next. And she was like, no, you need to guide women now in reclaiming their sensuality and sexuality through the medium of flowers. So that's what's coming.
There's very little that I've found on her, so this is great because I'll definitely be wanting to read. I'm sure lots will want to read that because it's, again, it's I think the same with Lupa. That's why I was really excited to, and I'm definitely going to be talking about both books on the show. I can wholeheartedly recommend, and yes, people must go off and read that after this. I'm certain lots of witches will want to, start the wolf journey itself. So yes, very exciting.
Oh, fabulous. Yeah, I hope that if you do, then it nourishes and supports you in coming to your wild, untamed self, because you are needed exactly the way that you are, and the way that you are is absolutely perfect. Like, you are made to be this way. Everything is right. There's nothing wrong about you at all. So, thank you for being you, and thank you for being here. And you are of service exactly the way you are.
Oh, and I'm going to say the same to you in response from all of us. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being you and the wonderful service that you are providing, because this has been absolutely wonderful. I'm so grateful that you came on and shared your time and energy with us. So thank you, Rachel.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for having me here.